All right. We're diving into something a little different this time. We've got a statement, a single sentence, really. No question mark in sight. Just follow pantheism.
And cryptic as it seems, I think there's a lot to unpack here.
Totally. Which is why we're here. It's like being told to find buried treasure with nothing but a red X on a napkin. So, how do we even begin to follow pantheism? Well, first things first, what are we talking about when we say pantheism?
Right. So pantheism at its core, it's the idea that the universe, nature itself, is divine.
Okay, so not a specific god or gods, but more like the entirety of existence is sort of sacred.
Exactly. It's about finding the divine within the world around us, rather than separate from it.
And that's a pretty different way of looking at things than, say, more traditional religions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the language in the note follow pantheism hints at that difference, too. It implies an active choice, a way of life, not just an intellectual concept.
I see what you mean. So where did this idea, this pantheism, even come from? I mean, have people always thought this way?
Well, pantheistic ideas, you can find them throughout history. Ancient philosophies, indigenous cultures, even some interpretations of Eastern religions have touched on this idea of the divine being inseparable from nature.
So it's not a new concept. It's like this thread that's been present for centuries.
Exactly. It's just been interpreted and expressed in various ways.
Fascinating. So if there's no one single source, no sacred text for pantheism, how do you even begin to, like you said, follow it?
Well, this might seem like a bit of a cop-out, but I think that's part of what makes it so interesting. There's no rule book, no one right way to follow pantheism.
That's both kind of freeing and intimidating, right?
Absolutely. But for some people, it might be about cultivating a deep reverence for nature, like really feeling that sense of awe when you look at a starry sky or a mountain range, or even just a tiny, perfectly formed insect.
Yeah, like feeling that connection to something much bigger than yourself.
Exactly. And then for others, it might mean becoming more active in protecting the environment. Because if you see the planet as sacred, then damaging it is. Well, it takes on a whole new level of significance.
It becomes almost a moral imperative in a okay, so there are different ways to express it, but this core idea is recognizing the divine in the natural world. That makes sense. But how do we move from simply recognizing it to actively following it? I mean, what would that even look like in daily life?
Well, that's the real question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And again, it goes back to this idea that there's no one right answer. It's about finding what resonates with you, what feels authentic to your own experience.
So it's about asking yourself, if I truly saw the universe as divine, how would that change the way I live? What choices would I make differently?
Exactly. And maybe there are small everyday changes you can make, or maybe it leads you on a completely different path altogether. But the important thing, I think, is to stay open to that possibility, to keep exploring and asking those questions.
To keep looking for that treasure, even if we're not sure what it looks like or where we'll find it.
Exactly. The journey itself is part of the process.
So if our listener, with their simple note, follow pantheism, nudged us to look at the world a little differently, to consider the sacred in the everyday, then I think that's a pretty good start to this deep dive, don't you?
I'd say so.
And who knows, maybe it's a starting point for a much larger journey for all of us.